All right, let's jump right into this. Welcome to this detailed examination of the facts, where we're methodically breaking down a highly charged, super viral debate surrounding recent student protests and the government's response. Now, we are looking at a deeply passionate piece of source material today. As always, our goal here isn't to take a side, but to neutrally unpack the speaker's exact arguments, cut through the rhetoric, and really understand the core claims being made. Right off the bat, the source material hooks us with a pretty massive contradiction. The speaker asks a really direct question. If these protesting students were actually the goons and anti-national elements that their detractors claimed, why on earth would the government ultimately yield to their demands? It's a clever rhetorical strategy designed to question the official narrative from minute one. To make sense of this fast-paced rhetoric, we've organized the speaker's arguments into 5 distinct themes: student protest and government, serious allegations on police action, the paper leak bill and NTA, questions on parliament and accountability, and finally, the opposition's narrative and conclusion. Okay, starting with Section 1, student protests and government. So, how did things escalate so fast? According to the source, the students' anger was initially aimed squarely at the education minister, Dharmendra Pradhan, over examination issues. But then, and this is a huge pivot, because of an intense police crackdown on the students in Delhi, those demands skyrocketed all the way up to the Home Minister, Amit Shah. The speaker is essentially arguing that this escalation was a direct reaction to the government coming down way too hard. Moving on to Section 2, serious allegations on police action. This is where the claims get incredibly serious. The speaker absolutely does not hold back here, alleging some, frankly, barbaric tactics deployed by the authorities. We're talking pellet guns, electric shells, and, get this, wooden sticks literally embedded with nails. The speaker uses these specific, vivid details to paint a really grim picture of disproportionate force being unleashed against the youth. And of course, there is a heavy human cost attached to these alleged tactics. The transcript emphasizes that innocent young people are suffering devastating, life-altering injuries. The speaker passionately highlights claims of students suffering fractured limbs and even losing their eyesight. It's a highly emotional appeal meant to drive home the severity of what they claim is unchecked police brutality. To back up the idea of systemic bias, the source draws a really stark contrast. On one side, you've got hundreds of FIRs being rapidly slapped on protesting students, including young girls. But on the other side, 0 arrests for individuals like Satyam Pandit, who was reportedly caught physically attacking the students. The core argument here is that the law is essentially being selectively weaponized. Which brings us to Section 3, the paper leak bill and NTA. Now, you might be looking at that number 7. The speaker points out that the new bill introduces some really tough penalties on paper, like up to 7 years in jail, or massive fines hitting 2 crore rupees. But they argue this entirely misses the point. Sure, the punishment looks tough, but the speaker claims the bill completely fails to address the root, structural mechanics of how these leaks are happening in the first place. Like, how are they actually going to be prevented moving forward? And that frustration is directed straight at the core target of this exam controversy, the National Testing Agency, or NTA. The source absolutely doesn't see them as a neutral administrative body. Actually, they bluntly define it as an alleged RSS mouthpiece. The speaker vehemently argues that the government refuses to dissolve the NTA because it essentially operates as a safe haven filled with tainted, politically connected insiders, rather than doing its job as an independent examination body. All right, Section 4, questions on parliament and accountability. Here, the critique zooms all the way up to the top levels of government. The speaker repeatedly questions where the leadership is, calling out the Prime Minister and the Home Minister for allegedly being completely absent from the floor of Parliament while something as vital as the paper leak bill is being debated. The source basically accuses them of hiding from accountability, pointing out that they allegedly hadn't held a single press conference in 12 days regarding the whole crisis. To highlight just how tone-deaf they feel the ruling party is, the source pulls a quote from a TV debate. When confronted with the devastating use of pellet guns on students, a ruling party MP allegedly brushed it off as an accidental discharge, saying it might have just gone off by trigger. The speaker uses this exact quote to argue that the people in power are completely, totally detached from their reality these students are facing on the ground. And the speaker argues that this isn't just a one-off. They map out this alleged behavior against past historical events to show a long-standing pattern of government apathy and factual misrepresentation. Take Operation Sindoor. They claim the government initially falsely reported 0 casualties, even though reports later showed 6 soldiers were martyred. Or the farmers' protest, where they allege the government callously ignored the deaths of 700 farmers.
The underlying message here is clear. This isn't an isolated incident. It's just how they operate. Finally, Section 5, the opposition's narrative and conclusion.
The transcript wraps up with some really dark allegations about the aftermath. The speaker claims that state machinery, like the ED and CBI, is now being actively deployed to hunt down young female protesters to crush any future movements. Meanwhile, they point out there are 0 FIRs against the police officers who allegedly used excess force. And on top of all that, they criticize the government for completely refusing to engage with the opposition for even basic parliamentary floor management.
So what does this all mean? The big takeaway here is the profound breakdown in democratic dialogue the speaker is illustrating. We want to leave you with this provocative thought, synthesized straight from the source's conclusion. In the face of such deep division, alleged evasion by top leaders, and a total breakdown in communication, how can the core democratic function of Parliament actually survive? It's a heavy, heavy question about the future of the institution itself. Thanks for tuning into this explainer today, and as always, keep questioning the details.